So in the previous episode, we added a follow cam using Cinemachine, which follows the player game object. And the player game object now follows the controller. So it sets its position at the computer module of the proxy that it is controlling. Let's quickly press play so we can see. This is actually our player game object right here. Which will immediately take, because this actually is not possible. So when we start the game, when the game starts, this can only exist if it is actually inside a computer. So it will immediately be attached to the computer module, which is the the little chip here with the red button, which is on top of the proxy of the Roomba robot that we're controlling. And then the camera will follow the player. And the reason why the camera follows the player and not necessarily the bot is because it makes more sense, because the player is the thing that will be switching from machine to machine. So it makes more sense that the camera always follows the player, because maybe at some point there will be actually a virtual world as well, where the player is moving around the internet or the networks or the computer, and then your camera will also still be following the player and not the objects necessarily. So that's why I think the camera follows the player and the player follows the proxy that it is currently controlled. That's what we implemented last time. Let's quickly press play. We also added then some background art, floor and a ceiling, just to make things a bit more pleasing to look at. And as you can see, so we can go left to right, it's using physics and forces. So it's not just translations or transform positions. We can currently also fly, which is not really the point. It's not supposed to be possible with this Roomba. There might be a better Roomba where we use a hover Roomba or something that has that capability. We will need to tweak our locomotion module where we can set whether or not certain movement in a certain direction is or isn't possible and at which speeds. But anyways, that's not really that important right now. So today, let's go to Millinode, where I've kind of summarized what we already did before. In the second episode, so in the first episode, I explained who I was and what the goal of this was and what the game should look like. In the second episode, we set up our project in Unity. I added an input manager, which is not the standard one, but the special one that is easier to use, at least according to the tutorials. We made our player object movable. And then in the next episode, we actually changed that because, as I said, now it's the proxy that is moving. So we kind of relayed the controls through the player to the proxy, so the proxy is the term that we use for any machine or human that the AI will be controlling in this game. And the reason why it's not just machine is because we're also might be controlling humans or animals, or maybe even more exotic things than that, like, I don't know, we'll think about it. Other AIs, for example. Like, what about an AI controlling another AI? Then we just call it a proxy that is controlled on behalf of the player. And then a proxy itself can have different modules. And the first module that we created was the locomotion module, which is a thing that moves the proxy that it's part of. We also generated some artwork for the module, like the Roomba itself. And the modules like the chip that we showed. Actually, our locomotion module doesn't have artwork yet because we kind of assume that the module is the Roomba itself. But in theory, we should maybe put like a small wheelbase that we consider to be the locomotion module, but it's not really necessary currently. And then we did some background artwork just to make things pretty. So on the to-do list for this stream is switching between different proxies. So basically, I'll copy paste the Roomba as a prefab into the scene, and the goal is at the beginning of the game to discover those objects. Like we'll create some kind of a manager of some sorts that will look into the scene and registers all the controllable proxies, and then you will be able to, it will pick the first one in the list, and then as the player presses a button, probably A or E, it will switch to the next available controller. So basically you will move around one Roomba, maybe it dies, maybe the power is shut down, you can switch to another one and continue, and that's how you keep surviving the game. And then I'll add a network module, which is a module that doesn't do much other than just keeping track of the state of the proxy's connectability. So basically, if the network module will say, well, if you don't have a network module, you will not be discovered by the game manager or the network manager or whatever, and you will not be able to control it, even though all of the other modules exist. And it will also determine whether or not you're online or not. So basically, that's kind of just a small piece of code. It's not really a physical module. Well, we can just add a little antenna or something like a Wi-Fi or like literally a switch or a router that is attached to a Roomba that allows us to actually connect to it from the outside. And then basically whether or not we can control the proxy will be determined by two things. Either does it have a network module and is it online? Then we can connect to it by basically pinging it and taking control remotely. Or is there a copy of our code on the computer itself? Because these are two ways of controlling. Like you can control remotely by just sending signals, or let's say your network module is absent or it's offline, you could still control if you have a copy of your code, of the player's code, the AI, stored on the drive of the computer, then you can also control it. And that's a bit of a weird situation there, because that means you're kind of splitting up your consciousness as an AI, because are you then actually still the same entity? That's a more philosophical question, but in terms of this game, I would like to keep it that way, that even if you're disconnected, if you still have the same code running, you're kind of still considered as the same entity. All right, let's get going. Let's go into the editor and let's first make a prefab of our proxy. So let's make a proxies folder inside our prefabs folder, and let's just move the proxy in there. Should make a prefab, and now I should be able to put, oh, what was that? Oh, it's still on. Yeah, okay, I added this while playing. So let's add multiple Roombas here, and the goal is that currently I've manually assigned a proxy to the player. So if you have the player as a field here, the controlling proxy, so that's the proxy that you're currently controlling, and I manually assigned it, which means that I currently cannot switch between other things. So that's the first thing we need to do. So I assume that if we would start the game right now, all of these Roombas would be functional, but we will only connect to the one that I've manually assigned via the serialized fields in the inspector. There you go. So I should be able to control this one. I don't even know what happens if oh, so that works. So the physics of these Roombas work. So we bump into each other. That's a bit of a downside, of course, of the 2D aspect here, is like how we will need to solve this in the future. Like how am I going to get around this fact? Because it's a bit annoying that a Roomba will only ever be able to will not be able to move past along other proxies. And I think at some point we will just have to decide that proxies can just pass each other, which is, it's going to be tricky, because we're going to have to find ways for proxies not being able to physically interact with each other, but then still interact in other ways, like charging, for example, because another proxy device could be a charger that charges the other proxy, so they still need to interact with each other, but they shouldn't bump into each other. But we'll think about it. I think that's what the layer system is made for, as far as I remember. And then, but then there's maybe other ways, like when you're in a combat or something, you should be able to bump into enemies. So maybe we should have an enemy ally system where you can cross allies, but you can't cross paths with enemies, or at least not without taking damage or whatnot. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself just because I saw this. So now the point is to go to the player script, and we have proxy controlling proxy, but we should make a new list of proxies. So proxy, let's say available proxies. Let's also serialize it because it's a bit easier to follow when I'm testing stuff. Available proxies. How can I find all of these proxies? Well, we could say that when we start, we look for all of the proxies. And actually, I think the best way to do it is using the tag system, because I remember from the tutorial that you can tag things, and that's also how you would detect different elements when they're colliding. Let's quickly check. On collision exit. So here you see like collisions. There are more collisions here. Were there collisions here in the delivery driver? On collision enter. Yes. Let's quickly scroll through this thing. I don't need the sound. I just need to find a way where they start coding. I think they look for tags or something. Other. So on collision enter, and then the other is another collision. On trigger enter. Oh yeah, that's a similar thing, I think. But then you don't have any physics. Destroy objects. Here, if other.tag. See, this is what I talked about. So we can tag things. And I think if I go back to the screen, this is where things are tagged. So maybe we should already add a tag. Oh, we have player tag. So maybe we should already tag the player as player. Maybe we should, it's already tagged. Then proxy. Should add a tag for proxy. Such that if things start interacting with each other, and then we also have proxy module. And then let's start tagging those things. So proxy is now proxy. I think we should save it, and it should apply to all of them. So all of them are now proxies. And the same is true for, oh no, but they're not prefabs. So that won't work just yet. Actually, they should also be prefabs, the modules, because they should be switched. If I change something here, it should be changed everywhere. Let's quickly do that. Let's delete these prefabs. Proxies, proxy modules. You cannot be moved. I need to open the prefab. Oh, okay, there you go. I can, okay. Oh, our locomotion actually has the chip here of the computer chip, which is fine for now, but you should realize that we have two different modules here. It's the module computer and the module, so that's a different module. Let's just put it somewhere. Oh, I didn't delete that one. I need to redo it because these are no longer prefabs. Proxy modules, proxies. Remove. There you go. All right, we can now create more of those. Prefab. Open an isolation, and I need to override this as well. Apply all. I think now on the other ones, these should also now be proxy modules. Okay, there we go. Okay. And the question is, should we actually put this on in the player script? Available proxies. So how can we find all the available proxies? So let's say find all proxies in the scene which have a, well, yeah, a tag of proxy and a controller, no, a computer module. Let's see what it does. Available proxies, new proxy. Find proxies with tag. Does that even exist? I think it's like a 4, no? Here, for each game object proxy and find game objects. So this should find all game objects with the tags. Did you see how like fast this went? I didn't have to think, but I'm now going to read it to make sure that there's no mistakes in here. So for every proxy game object that it finds, which is basically any game object with the tag proxy, if proxy get component proxy, which this is basically just getting the script, because that's kind of important. I've realized that the game object and the script are two different things, obviously. But what you're searching for here is game objects. You're not necessarily looking for the proxy script class. So you still need to get that class. And then it's using our function that we made last time, or method, sorry, get installed module by type. So it's finding a computer. And if that's not null, then available proxies dot is no, but you need to add it. Oh no. So it's a list. That's why it failed, because I didn't properly assign it. See? Add, there you go. Why should it break though? Just continue. I don't understand why you would break. To the first available one, which is the 0 index. Okay. Honestly, let's already quickly test this. This shouldn't work functionally, but it should complete the list. When we start the game, it should put 3 elements in the array. So if you look at proxy, where's my player? There it is. So it should now have available proxies, which is now empty. And if we start the game, it should find them. At least if Copilot did a good job. Oh, it did. Look at that. And the cool part is now it actually took the one that we didn't assign ourselves. It took number 2 because that's the first one in the layer. And I think that probably happens randomly because it's just the first one it finds. Because that's something we need to be very careful about. The last time we had an issue that it was setting the proxy on a module when the module wasn't installed yet on the proxy. So using the start function is not always the best place to do these kinds of things. Let's first start by moving all that code. Find controllable proxies. There you go. It will just copy this automatically, so that's pretty cool. Now it can change it by find controllable proxy. What the hell? Oh, it's not void. Go ahead. Find controllable proxy. And that's why it's better to have this done probably by a manager script rather than, and we should call this controllable proxies. Oh, can we make it an empty list first? I guess so. Controllable proxies. So now what's the downside here? So one of the downsides is that I think this is dangerous because it might find a proxy before the computer module is installed, and then it will say it's not, but that will just be like, that's randomly, because if it does, like, depending on what happens first, which means that we should not do this like at start. When does this install? Is installing. That happens on start as well. So that's the thing. So this now worked because for some reason the player start was invoked later. But if this is called too late, then it won't work. Let's just see when it actually results in a problem. Let's just wait. So now let's set controlling proxy. We need that anyway, because now we need to say public switch proxy. No, sorry, public void switch to next controllable proxy. See, it just wrote the code for me, so it's gonna find the index of the current proxy in the list. Makes sense. It's gonna increment it. If it's bigger than the count, then it will loop around, I guess, index 0, and then it says, okay, so that's okay. And now we want the opposite, switch to, and it just, you know, it knows that I want that because I just made switch to next controllable proxy, so it just makes the same. There you go. Now, when do we want this to happen? So that's a good question. We want it to happen when the player presses a button. And what does it actually mean? If you switch what? Systems diagnostics. I don't think that's a thing. No, it added this by itself. And since so the reason why this should work is because every time on every on move we double check, we recheck what's the currently controlling proxy. So that's why this will now work without actually having to set something. But something that, because we also need to make sure that our position is set. Yeah, so this needs to be called again, but that's called on every update. But that's the question, should that be called on every update? Maybe we should only call it whenever we switch. Well, no, because no, we shouldn't, because when it starts moving, then we would move along. Okay. So we need to go back and go to our player input manager, which is here somewhere. Player input actions. There we go. So instead of look and fire, which we don't actually need right now, we have to add a new add an action. Oh, it's still in play mode. Can you turn it off? Yes. New action. We should call this switch to next proxy, which is sounds very generic, but paste that, add an action, switch to previous proxy. We should bind this to keyboard by character map to key E, but small e. Oh, there's no difference. Okay. And here next is E, right? Yes. A. Yes. So the reason why I do character mapped, because I know that I've had issues because I have a European AZERTY keyboard. So actually we should also quickly change it here. Instead of up W, it should be character map to key W. Yes. This is Z for me. No, Q, sorry. Q. Okay. Now, as far as I know, we auto save. We save. You can see that here. We should have a new function or a callback function here called on switch to next previous proxy. So basically, we just go on. Is it capital letter? Yes. Void on switch to next proxy. Just do that, and then the same thing for this one. I think this might even work already. I'm not sure. Also need to check if my QWERTY AZERTY reassignment now works. That works. Look at that. I could switch between all three. See how cool that is, that I can, just by asking like ChatGPT or Copilot, how fast that goes. I don't have to think about how do I need to do for each loops in C#. I don't need to do that. I just need to realize that that's what I need to do, but I don't need to learn the syntax. I'm not saying that's really how everyone should learn how to code, but for me it works. It works. So we can now switch between. Whoa, what was that? Someone's. It, for some reason, it keeps going. Why is that? It kept pushing. Oh, that's actually, it looks like a bug, but so when I keep pressing left and I switch, then the input value keeps being set to pushing, which might sound like it's a bug, but that's actually a cool thing because that's a mechanic that you could use in the game. It's like, I'm gonna press the pedal and I'm gonna move out of here, and this thing's gonna keep moving, and I can now take control of another thing. I like that. Whoa, 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 whoa. So I'm not gonna touch that for now, because it just remembers that the output when I left it, the controller is still doing that. I'm not controlling it anymore, but that's what it was set to. That's actually interesting. So which means I could take control of a car, set it to go straight forward, swap the proxy, the car keeps going, it explodes or whatever, and in the meantime I've taken control of another car and doing multiple things. And I think that's kind of the mechanic that I want to go for here, is where you're in a scene somewhere where you're controlling like 10 robots or cars, and you're just swapping from one to another, doing certain actions right before you want to switch to another, and that's how you kind of solve the level. I think that sounds cool, but we'll see. It might not work, but this seems to work, so that's cool. So we got that going. We can now switch. Oh, I don't know why it loaded that code. Switch to. I want to try something now. So I'm gonna remove the computer module from this thing, which should prevent me from controlling it. So let's see. It should not be in the list of controllable proxies, because I checked for that. Let's see. Yeah, I can only control these two. Perfect. It's still a complete physical thing in the world, but I can no longer control it. That's cool. So that immediately works. I can now say, well, let's add the module again. We go to prefabs, module. Oh, let's remove the locomotion module of proxy 2. which should allow me to take control, but I should not be able to move. And that's the thing I was saying like last time, like, okay, this might be a bit complex, and like why am I being so like making all these sub modules and whatnot? But now it's very easy to, like, I could take control, and I see in my logs here that it says locomotion module not found. That's the booklog that I made, so that's fine. So I'm now taking control, but there's no locomotion module, so I can't move around, which is exactly what I was going for. But I can still control it. I can still go there because there's a computer. So that's fine. That's great. Right, let's go to our to-do list and see if that's what I wanted to achieve here. Oh, you kept playing. I didn't need that. Player switches between proxies. That works. Network module. Yeah. So I don't know if that's urgent to actually implement that, but let's just do it anyway. I want to create a new type of module. And I will just copy paste this, but it should not be. No. Yes. Rename proxy module network. Because I mentioned before that whether or not you can control something depends on two things. Whether or not you have a computer module at all, but also if I can make a connection, and that will be handled by the network module. Because if I'm in a room somewhere as the AI and there's a Roomba there, but there's no internet connection towards it, then I cannot connect to it. Like, it's being shielded from. And that's going to be part of the game as well, where there's like a device there that you want to take control of, but there's like a firewall or something, so the network is preventing you from taking control, and then you might need to solve a certain puzzle or do a certain action to gain control. So that's where I want to head towards. So that's why I'm already going to implement the network controller, but maybe I'll just say like a simple boolean saying, well, it is online, and that's all you need to worry about right now. So I need to remove this script because that's not the correct script. Remove the module computer. I need to apply that. Oh no. No, that was not. No, should not have done that, because I now did it on the prefab. And the prefab was the locomotion one, or the computer one. Can I undo that? Yes, I can. I should decouple this. So prefab, unpack completely. There you go. I should go to scripts. I should copy the script. No, let's just make a new script. Proxy module network. Let's open it up. I will copy the code because it's just the same as a computer. Let's copy this code to here, but let's call anything that's called computer here would be called network. There you go. Of course, there is no type yet because I haven't set that. So in proxy modules, we need to add a new type. Should the Copilot knows that that's what I need. Let's remove this comment because that's super obvious. We can now make this module network. Let's see what a network module. Yes, there you go. Let's go back to the network module and link that script. I'm gonna do it now because last time I forgot it and I think there's something wrong, and all it was is just I just didn't connect the network script. You know what? Time to make some artwork. Let's make a sci-fi fiber network chip, network device, network controller. But if I say chip, it's gonna look like a regular chip in it. It should look like a router with a small antenna on it, so maybe I should give that. Because I'm starting to think that I do want sprites for each module as well, so that you can kind of see what modules are present by just seeing them. Wait, am I checking if there's someone here? Oh, there it is. Of course, nobody's here. Are you kidding me? Oof, making a very complicated thing. Oh, I asked for a scene also. That's my mistake. That was pretty cool art though. Look at that. Pretty cool. I love it. I love what this thing can do. Again, like I do want to mention again that I have a paid Adobe license, so this is not something you can just do if you don't have that. But again, I think these things are worth it because they save me so much time and they provide some enjoyment. Get go. Wi-Fi fiber network router device. Let's put it like that. Match active hardboard style. Yes. Let's generate. If it doesn't generate what I want, I'll add some more descriptions like a small antenna or something. I wonder if I could, I don't know if that was a good idea though, but I could put like the Planet of Lana artwork in here and then it could mimic that, but sounds to me that that's like a bit icky to do. So let's not do that. Okay, it's really what I wanted. It looks like I wanted. The only problem is again that it looks too 3D. Let's see. And it's quite big obviously, so it needs to be smaller. Should be sitting on top of that. Range, right to front. You know, actually it doesn't look half bad. I want to keep it. The other one is a bit smaller. Maybe it's cuter to have the small one. It does have a few things that I can use to as gauges, like say, oh, it's powered or it's online or it has a good or bad connectivity. So actually I like the other one better. So let's keep this one. So isolate it from its frame. It's a bit easier to work with. Maybe it's a bit too big though. And I will remove these dials here, because I can use that with some like sprites behind it with a certain color. Like it's gonna be red or green if it's online or not. Oh, why is that not? Oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to do that another way. I have to take this out of context and go one level back. Paste it in the same place and also subtract the shapes, which is done with something called Pathfinder. Subtract shapes. There we go. So this is what I want. Let's see. If only I could make actual art. While I'm here, is there any other? Maybe we should are already gonna Cybernetwork small battery module with power gauge, because we're gonna make a power module later. So let's just do that now. And then I have some stuff to put on every piece of thingy. But it needs to fit though, because one idea was to put the power gauge here. Another downside is though that like this is now much more detailed because I sized it down, but it still has the same amount of detail. Meaning Of course, this is not really how a battery is implemented on a Roomba, though. It's not like sitting on top of it. So I don't know if that actually looks any good. Maybe this might look the best to put on the side rather than on top of it. Check if you, because maybe this one I'll use for the dust when it's collecting dust, and it say like, oh, also ask for a wheelbase, because maybe I can replace this by a wheel art, and that can be like the locomotion engine, because I've been putting my controller here, but it looks more like it's the wheel. I can do it differently rather than making a new. Oh, look at that. It's cool stuff. Look at this engine. This is cool. I'm not gonna throw this away. But I was looking for like this wheel. Yes, perfect. Look at that. That's exactly what I want. Oh. When the wheel is not available, then it's kind of like, I think I do want to get rid of this though. The battery, the network. I don't know what I'll use that for. But there's one thing I do need to change on this, and that's the battery level should be behind this. Yeah, kind of. Would maybe want to make this bigger, a bit more visible. Well, that went faster than I imagined. So this will be my battery gauge. So now I will have to remove everything. These are different modules. Hardboards. There you go. So let's call this locomotion. Right. Well, let's call it the Roomba locomotion, because it will look different for different things, obviously. So this is the Roomba network. Roomba network. This is the Roomba controller, right? Let's say Roomba computer. This is the Roomba battery. Not that we can't reuse it on other modules, but just that we know where it comes from. This is the Roomba proxy, like the structural container. I think we have everything. Yes, just need to fit artworks to the artboards. There you go. I think we can get rid of this and this as well. Yeah, let's just clean up this thing. Right, Control save. Why do I have this? This would be our oven, perhaps. Right, Control E. Let's just export everything again, just to make sure. Yes, just replace everything. That's fine. Should not be an issue. Right here, let's go to my prefabs. I will put proxy modules. We have the locomotion one. Let's add the one in. Let's remove the other prefabs for now, just to avoid confusion. Let's call this one Roomba, by the way, so that if we make a prefab out of it, we know it's the Roomba prefab and not some other device. All right, this sprite. Let's go to sprites. Roomba sprite. Sprites. 1x. We can remove this. Don't need that anymore. Yes. There you go. Roomba computer, that's fine. Yep, let's put it in the middle here. Not the best place to put it, but what's this? Locomotion. We change that with the wheel. The Roomba sprite itself hasn't really updated. Oh, there you go. We should always reset like the polygon colliders on these things. Oh, these don't have colliders. Does it matter? Oh, well, if they stick out, then it should matter. Okay, let me quickly check. ChatGPT. Because I want all of these to have colliders though. Collider. Polygon collider. Yes, this one as well. Polygon collider. Because if they stick out, then they all have colliders. But the collider for... Okay, so the thing is that I want that, like, if this sticks out... Okay. Go to ChatGPT. In Unity, I have a parent object containing child objects, each with their own 2D colliders. Can the parent have a collider that, I guess, merges all the child colliders? Merge collider, on composite collider. Combine multiples into one. Has a rigid body TT. Does it have it? Yes. For each, used by enable the used by composite checkbox for all the children. Polygon collider used by composite. Oh, that seems to do something. Used by composite one as well. So now what? No. Wait, I didn't read everything. On the parent object's composite collider to the... Oh, the parent has to have composite collider. So let's remove this. Remove oh, look there. Okay. And then what? Removed. Wait, should I remove it? Because should it have both? Used by composite. So this says here I can choose between outlines and polygons. Can you tell me what's the difference? Single, yeah, that's fine. No, they don't have to be separate. So outlines, yeah, that's fine. But it doesn't seem to do that, or will not function with a composite until there is a composite collider 2D on the game object that the attached rigid body is on. Oh, but I should, yeah, but that makes sense. I should get rid of these then. These shouldn't have rigid bodies by themselves, which makes sense because I don't want these things to, well, do I? I was gonna say I don't need these things to have their own physics, but I guess in the future it would be kind of cool where you bump into stuff and like your computer falls off because it has its own physics. But then why am I actually making a composite collider though? To simplify it for now. Let's simplify it for now. Remove component. Is it working now? Yes, there's no longer an error here. Ah, with the wheel it seems to be working. Look, the yellow line is going around it. Oh yeah, it works. Yeah, it seems to work. Network, oh, because this one still has its own rigid body 2D. Okay, perfect. This is what I want. Yes, but it still needs its own collider as well. That's exactly what I wanted. Oh, this doesn't have to stick out. Put it here. Let's put the network here. And let's just copy this because I'm already going to put the proxy module power. I already made the shape for it. Where I was going to put it? Here? Yeah, I think so. I must say, it doesn't look really nice though, putting all these things there, but that's not the problem right now. That's not really something to worry about. It's the concept of adding modules that counts right now. And I do want them to be somewhat considered separate. Look at you. It's like Pimp My Ride. This thing looks like high tech. Because I could also just not bother with sprites and just a script attached to it to the actual module and it does its thing. It's completely functional. But I think I want to do it like this because this makes it a little bit also recognizable. Because oh yes, I have a network module because I can see it. Like I don't have to check. Like as a player, if you're playing, because if a player you don't see your script. Here you can see, and I might even put some lights on this thing where it says, and then it is useful to have that. Right, where were we? So we kind of clean up our Illustrator file here. Let's save this as well because I think I haven't saved it in a while. But I think we have all the artwork for whatever we want to complete. So let's go back to the coding. So what was the point again for the module network? Yes. So actually, so it all relates here to find controllable proxies. And there's a few things. I will just copy it. If the proxy, wait, for the proxy to be controllable, it must have a computer model. It must also have a network module, and the network module must be online. Now, that's only one case. There's one other case where you can control it, is when you don't control it. Well, it has to have a computer. That's one thing for all of them. And then it must have an online network module, or the computer must have a copy of the player's AI code. So basically, let's just put this here. If there's, oh, sorry, no. If there's no computer, it's already over. So we need to fail fast. Equals no. Continue. We don't want to add it. Doesn't matter. Let's just put some debugs here. Proxy name does not have a computer module. Skipping. Let's just put it here, not public, private bool. Look at that, it just knows it's asking to be online, and then I need to get it. Can you, no. We'll serialize it because I want to be able to switch it on and off. Bool is online, and then void set it's online. Yeah, these two things, that's fine. So if proxy get component, if I need to go ask for it twice, maybe we should just put it in variable though. Proxy module computer equals as if we could simplify this. Oh, we also want proxy module network. See if I make a typo, it just copies my typo. That's stupid. So we're getting these two things, ST modules on our proxy. Now, if we can still check if the computer, let's go to the computer module and let's start up with simple bool as well. Bool has player AI, look at that, it just knows, it's insane how it knows what I want. Has player AI. Yes, perfect. And we'll just put these as like things that are, should it know that I want to set? Yes, set. There you go. I'm saving so much time here. And whether or not it has player AI, these are mechanics for later, but let's just already include it into the checkings. If has player AI. If it doesn't have a network and it doesn't have a player AI, then you're also skipping. Or it's offline. I think it's get is online or something. No. Protection level. Oh, I didn't put it public. Well, it must have a computer module. It must. But if it does, it either trying to think about what the best way. Just making sure that I'm not making any mistakes here, because I'm kind of going it in the reverse way. That's supposedly a better way to do it, is to fail fast first. But I do want to double check it though. So I do want to check it again. I'll just provide it because that I'll get. Proxy module computer does not equal no, and proxy module network does not equal no, and proxy module network is online, or right. Gonna which changes has should change in bools. Bool has computer can be controlled remotely equals this whole thing. or bool can be controlled locally. That's a good way to put it. Yes, can be controlled locally. Yes, this makes it a little bit easier to understand. And then I can kind of get rid of all this code. So in order for it to be able to control it remotely, it has to have a computer, it has to have a network, and that network has to be online. In order to be controlled locally, all you need to have is a computer that has your code installed. This should work. Right. Get rid of all of this. Find controllable proxies. Honestly, this doesn't really fit here. Actually, I have a function for that. Set controlling proxy, so it's better to use a function then. Yes, it's a little bit clearer to use it like this. And currently I've done that in an artificial way, being online false. So actually, if I test this now, and this thing should not be controllable because everything is false. At least in terms of onlineness. Let's quickly check though. World, can I just collapse this? Because there's no need for this to be open. So the Roomba. So you could also argue that does that code really have to be in the player script? Should that code not be in the proxy script? And the proxy is constantly checking itself if it's controllable. Because the problem here is also that this does it at the beginning. And if something becomes uncontrollable, it's still in the list of controllable lists. So we have to move that code. And I think I want to do like a network manager where there's like the network, which is a completely different entity from anything we've already built, and it just continuously checks everything and what's controllable and not, and it updates that. And then the player just connects to the network and selects whatever is possible to connect to. And that's going to be better anyway later when you want to not just switch to the next one, but you want to get a list of all the things you can take control of and you can select it via the UI. That's going to be better anyway. In any case, well, see, find controllable proxies. When is that called actually? Who calls this? At the start. Well, I currently want this to also be called every time on update, because I will test whether or not that's true continuously. But I don't think it's the player that should have that code, because I don't think it's a good separation of concerns or whatever they call it.